Hello, welcome back to the studio here in Northumberland. Today, something a little bit different because it's watercolour pencils. And I've got a painting here that I did quite a lot of years ago. And I'm just going to pin that to the board so I can keep referencing it. There. And that's the picture I did. And this is a place called Fountains Abbey in North Yorkshire. And I was there on a painting holiday, I think. It was so long ago, I can't remember. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to make it into watercolour pencils. And rather than taping on, I'm just going to make a little vignette here kind of thing. And the reason why I've chosen this one to actually paint in pencils is because there's a heck of a lot of tips and techniques going on in here. Lots of different ways of using them, all in the same picture. So you get more value for your money. Oh no, it's not money, you don't pay. That's why I'm a starving artist. And what I'm going to start off with is a quick outline pencil drawing, just like I would normally in a watercolour painting. And the only reason why I need my reading glasses is so I can read out to you the names of the silly names of the colours. I think they employ people, and I've just dropped them all. I think they employ people in an office just to think up silly names for colours. I'm back. Now, what I've pulled out, what I've done here, is I've pulled out all the colours that I want to use for this picture. And you can see what I mean. I need my reading glasses to read those colours. That one's dark sepia. And the pencils I'm using are Lyra watercolour pencils. They're a really good, strong pigmented pencil. Because after all, watercolour pencils is just watercolour pigment in a stick. And these are nice and strong. And they're not very expensive at all. And you'll notice how they're a mess on the bottom, on the end. That's because I use a knife to sharpen them with. If you use, here's one that's not used, white. Should never use white. If you use just the end, if you use a pencil sharpener to sharpen it with, for one thing, you're in danger of crumbling the colour because the sharpener can crumble the colour. But also, you've just got one point there and a little bit of side. If I use a knife to sharpen them with, you can see I've got a point to draw with, but also I've got lots of different angles and sides, different ways of using the pencil. Makes sense to me anyway. And one I use to start with here is, not that one, is light cobalt. That's what it's called. It's a very light colour, as it would suggest. And I'm just doing a fairly faint outline here. But of course, because it's watercolour pencils, any mark that I've got, as soon as I touch it with a wet brush, the mark will disappear. That bit here. It's a crumbly old building. A bit like me, really. Crumbly old geezer. And come down here with that. I'm not pressing on too hard either with the pencil. Fairly light outline. And some here. So I'm seeing two sides of it. Bit going downwards there. And another little turret. Is it a turret? What's it called, Gail? Lumpy bit. You see? We've got building terminology as well. Lumpy bit. Fountains Abbey is a lovely place. Very peaceful. And a river runs through it, as you can see on the painting. And to be honest, might not even have that in. we shall see. Little window there. An arched window there. And there are bits and pieces of this that I will change to suit the painting. Plus the fact I hate doing paintings twice identical. Don't like it. You notice you see the inside of the window there as well. Now I'm coming off here. And here's the top of the wall. And there's little, what are those things called, girl?
I don't know, I'm going to look it up in a minute.
That's not good. You told me you knew everything.
Well, I lied.
I'm sure somebody will tell me. Not ramparts, is it?
No. Well, it could be.
No, it's not.
Collective term.
Collective, is it? A bit more there. And then we've got an archway coming up here. Pinnacle of it back there. And then again, we'll see the inside of that. Now I've got another one at the other side of the building, which you can just see the top of there. And it's slightly lower than the top of that. Or it should be. It is now. There. And again, the inside of that. And then some more wall. And all of this will take shape as soon as I get the colour on, and of course the all important shadow. It's the shadow that gives everything shape and depth. And a few bumpy bits here on the end of the building. And now I've got some windows on here too. Arched. And a bit of stuff going on inside there, so that you're looking in, or you will do in a minute when we've got some paint on it. And of course, if there's bits that you want to keep very detailed and sharp within a painting, when you're using watercolor pencils, you don't have to wet them. What I mean by that is just leave an outline, almost like using a pen within a picture. Do for those. And a few bits and pieces under here. Then behind that, and draw the outline of some trees. There's lots of trees in this place. Very wooded area. And some here. And down here. And from that a little bit, and some grass underneath it. Grass. more trees. And these will come in front of those eventually. Now I've got the bank here. Coming out of the picture. A bit more of that here. Bit of rough stuff there, undergrowth. And a load of trees here, bigger trees, can be further forward. This is the outline, of course, of the foliage there. And I'll probably have some stuff coming down here, but I won't bother with that. That's it, drawing done. Outline done. What you didn't tell me, girl, was I missed the window out there. You're supposed to pick me up on that kind of thing.
Oh, sorry, I'm too busy fiddling with the camera.
And you're supposed to know what you're doing with that as well.
One of these days I will know what I'm doing.
I'll make two of us. I've spent 35 years doing this job and I always keep thinking one day I'm going to get found out. There, so I'll put that in. A little bit in there. Now, all that needs to be done is to colour it in. And this is the fun bit, really. It doesn't kind of like, it's just an outline drawing at the minute. And when I start colouring it in, it's like doing a kid's drawing. You're literally just colouring in your outlines. And the magic happens afterwards. And there'll come a point in this where it just looks like a scratchy mess. Hopefully it doesn't stay like that. But the magic happens when you put the water on. And what I'm starting off with here is Van Dyke Brown, nice and light. And with watercolour pencils, it's like any other pencil. The harder you press on, the darker the mark's going to be. So with these, on this lighter side, I'm not pressing on too hard. This is the light side. The light's going to be coming from the right. Bit there, bit there, and just colour in. Simple as that. Lighter strokes. Bit there. Don't worry about pencil lines showing. What I mean by that is going in different directions. Don't worry about that, because when you put the water on, they're going to go. Have faith. Now, this lot here, just colouring in. And you can see I've got my pencil marks going in all directions. That doesn't bother me. Pressing on a little bit harder then. And again, just colouring it. And that is all Van Dyke Brown. There's lots of different tones and colours in this lot. And I tend to not actually look that closely at the names on the pencils. I just look at the tip and that tells me what I want. I'm looking at the names to tell you. Because I'm good like that. Aren't I, girl?
Oh, you are.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Sorry?
I said definitely.
Oh, okay, fine. Sort of might be some sarcasm going on there. Now, I want a little bit of golden ochre. And what I'm doing, I'm putting one colour on top of the other. I'm making the colour on the paper because I know what's going to happen when I wet it. Bit of golden ochre, very much like yellow ochre in my watercolours. And I'm pressing on a little bit harder than I did with the brown with that one. Lighter side, and I want the light to show. A little bit of that up there as well. And again on here. And these will all merge together when I wet it. Bit that and a bit there. Now, dark sepia. And this is a lovely strong colour, but it is very strong, so be careful how much you put on. And again, just colouring in. And as you're actually painting it, if you wanted, it depends which way you want to use them really. As you're painting it, you could wet it, the colour that you've put on, I mean, you could wet it as you're going along. But I prefer just to get the drawing done. Get it all done and then wet the lot. More fun that way. More of a surprise. A little bit there. Now a little bit of that inside these arches as well. Look there. Now, fairly faint marks with that in there, just to show that there is, eventually, just to show that there is something inside there. That's the building coloured in, filled in. And it's as easy as that. We'll be adding more colours, of course, when we start and put the shadows in. What I'm going to do now is get the trees coloured in. And I've got 3 tones of green for this. And I'm starting off apple green. What a cute name. Apple green, which is light. Fill in here. A bit of that there as well. And some of that in here. And a few bits here. And over here. Just think about where you want your light to be. And like I said, in this it's coming from the right. And be conscious of that all the time. And if you can't remember, if you lose sight halfway through the picture, actually draw a little arrow in the top of your picture, just to remind you, where's the light coming from? And from up here. Gap, some down here, and some here. Pressing on harder now as well. Now I've got, there you go, moss green. Look, a bit darker, you see. And put that over there. See what I mean now about it becoming a squiggly, squawky mess? Which it is doing now, but it'll be right. He said hopefully. A bit down here. Again, carefully around the building. And not too much of that up on this one. Even though it's closer, I want to keep the light strong on that one. And of course, if you look at the painting here, I've got bits of boughs showing through here. I should be doing that in another way. That's another little, a different example of how to use them. Now, my darkest green. That's moss green, that's that one, yeah. Sap green I've got here, moss green I've got here. I've lost the green, folks. Talk multi-size. Aha! Night green. Strange name, but it's very dark. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? Yummy! Get down here. It's got a very blue bias to it as well, this colour. And a few bits of that in here. Don't go mad with it over here. Because what you've got to be aware of as well is once you start and wet it, whilst it's still good and wet, and you'll see this when I do it, whilst it's still good and wet, you can move the colour around and create colour elsewhere from the mark that you've wet. You'll see what I mean when I do it. Down here now, quite a bit of that down here. Here. And not much of that in here, just mainly in the bottom bit there. A few touches in the top. Now, a little bit of Venetian red. It's very much like, there you go, Venetian red. It's very much like I use light red in watercolours. In this lot, it's Venetian red. Put that down here. And a few touches there. The river, the little bit of river that I've got, I'm going to leave that. There's a different way of putting that on. And I'll show you that when it comes to it. Now, to my golden ochre, and a little bit of apple green and not moss green, sap green. There we go. There's my ochre to start with. Keeping light on top of the grass there, or what will be the grass. Now to my apple green, a few bits of that in here. And again, what I'm doing in my mind, I'm thinking about what's going to happen all the time when I actually wet it. And I'm thinking about the colour that I'm going to have mixed on the paper. And now, a little bit of sap green. And I shall just fade it out there, because like I say, it's a little vignette that I'm doing. Now, a few touches of blue. Put that, I shall use, there we go, my Prussian blue in watercolours, I hate Prussian blue because every time you touch it with another colour, it instantly turns green. But of course with this, I'm putting it within the green, so it doesn't really matter. It's going to go green anyway. More of that, and a bit more down here, where the trees meet the building, and a little bit down here. And there we go, drawing done. Now it's time for the magic. Now, as you can see, this just looks like a kid's drawing. And the other beauty about this, working with watercolour pencils, is if you're outside on location doing paintings, which, let's face it, once it's wet, it is a painting. You can close your sketchbook or whatever you're using and just go home now at this point. It's not going to move, you're not going to damage it, and you can come back and wet it months later. Like for instance, if you've got cold, being out on location, you don't want to actually start putting water on. Take it home, do it there. All you have to do is wet it because you've got all the colours you want on there. Now it's time for the sky and a different way of using the pencil. I'm not drawing on. What I am doing is getting my big brush, my 1.5 inch flat brush, which is what I use for my skies, aquafine of course. I'm taking the paint off the pencil. I'm not pre-wetting the paper first, I'm just taking the paint off the pencil, like so. Then paint it on. And this one is Prussian blue. It's got a bit of Prussian blue. Keep dipping in. Come up to trees, kind of, carefully. Bit more water. Take more off. And around that castle. The sharp edge of the big brush, look. Easy peasy. And now you've got a watercolour sky, and it is as simple as that. Paint it on, take it off the pencil and paint it on. In between there. Now wash out my brush, squeeze out, just like if I was using normal watercolours. Take a few clouds out here and there. On that. Over here. Just like a normal watercolour, because of course once that's wet and on the paper, that's what it is. It's just watercolour. And that will do for that. Sky done. Now the sky's finished, I'm going to change to my round brush, again, aquafine brushes. I only use 4 brushes in total, as you should know by now. The big one that I've just used for my sky, 1.5 inch flat, number 8 round, 3/4 inch flat, all aquafine, and my number 4 rigger for any fiddly twiddly bits, which to be honest, that's not my number 4 rigger, which to be honest, I'm probably not going to use the rigger in this one. But anyway, we'll see. So now, by the way, that pencil that I've just used for the sky, which I wet, just give it a wipe. And it's ready for drawing again now. See? So useful, these things. I love them. Now, to my round brush, all I'm going to do is wet the colour that I've put on. Like so. And this time I have to be a little bit careful. Like that. And suddenly it becomes a watercolour painting. Up to the edges here. And with a round brush, they're very useful brushes these, especially a number 8 because it's the perfect size. If you press on harder, you can get a really broad stroke, you know, so the belly spreads of the brush, or use a fine point like that, because these things really do go to a lovely fine point. Like so. And now we've got a darker side to our tower. and again here. Bring it down and again. And it's like I've said so many times, you're just wetting your pencil marks. I've just thought what they are. Buttress. It's a buttress. You see?
Yep.
You didn't know I was a builder as well, did you?
No.
I know all these things, mate. In the last film, I was a director, I think, wasn't
I think you were. And those things at the top are crenellations. Top of the tower.
I? Dark of it there, look. You notice how I pretended like you didn't say anything then? It's because you're getting too fancy now. And wet the end there. Nice and dark. And remember, at the end of the picture, at the finish of the picture, there's going to be a lot of shadow going throughout this as well. Now, right inside there, a bit more water. Just looks like you're looking through. Now I'm just going to pick up a bit of that wet, dark wet paint there and just pop it inside those. I'm wetting the dark mark that I put on when I drew it as well, and a bit there. See what I mean? I'm just picking up paint and moving it around. There, how simple is that? Now it's time to wet the trees. Starting from the light, look, tapping on and coming down into the darker stuff. And then moving that dark stuff up into the light. Move the paint around while it's still wet. If I get a scratchy bit, just work it a bit there, that's better. Putting that here. And that's the dark side, dark bit in the tree. So now when I go to the light, I'm just going to wash my brush out first. Clean water on there and dab. Isn't that simple? And yet, even after about 100 years of working with watercolour pencils, I still find it really amazing when it happens. Because you've got this scratchy, nasty mess. And suddenly you've got a painting. Really rewarding. I just love painting. Which is just as well. It's my job. More here. Now this is what I'm talking about, using different methods within the painting as well. I want some bits of, what do I mean, boughs, trunks and stuff coming up there within the tree. Just go on wetting that a little bit more. So now, within that wet load of stuff, all I'm going to do is go to my dark sepia. Go to my dark sepia, look, into the wet bit and drag down. And a bit there. Back with the wet brush. And I don't want to wet all of those, I just want to wet where it goes into the tree there. Look. Bit of digital like that, just to soften it in. but leaving that as dry paint, dry pencil now. Effective, isn't it? Is that effective, Gail?
It's very effective.
Thank you, that's all right. Now, again, clean brush. And here, with the light first. Keep reloading my brush so I'm moving the colour around. Carefully up to the castle there. Sorry, castle. And picking paint up and moving it around. Look. Into that bit of Venetian red, soften it up into the green as well. So it's there and it's warm, but it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. Moving the paint around again, picking up a bit here, pop a few bits on there. Now, pick up a few more bits, pop a few bits on there, look. Made a dark colour on the paper, I'm picking it up and moving it around. There. Yummy! Is that yummy again?
Very yummy.
Thank you. You say all the right things.
I know.
There. Now I'm just going to change brushes to a bigger brush because I've got a bigger area here. So I'm going to my 3/4 inch flat and wet that. Dabbing on. And again, re-wet it. Working from the light, then into the dark. And softening the dark up. And now, once I've picked up that little bit there, I can then create a few more bits there, look. Again, just moving your paint around. And once more, well that's still wet, like I did over here, but a broader stroke, slightly broader. So instead of just using the sharp bit of the brush, I'll lay the brush on more, look, see? Slightly broader. Easy peasy. And I'm going back in now with my number 8 round brush. Soften. But leaving the main stroke just dry. Dry piece of colour pencil. Bit of digital art again. Softening in now. Simples. Now it's time for the grass. I was going to say lawn, but it's a field really. Take it on here, going up to the light. And then down to this dark bit here. All with a 3/4 inch brush. Big brush, put it on. Pick it up, move it around. Very, very simple. But now you can see what I was talking about by putting on different colours. I've made the colour on the paper for the grass. I've got lighter, mid-tone, slightly darker. Now, before the shadow, which is the end of the picture, I just want to finish off and do this river. And like I said, it's again another different way of doing it. What I'm doing there, getting a bit of green. This is the sap green. Put that in there like so. And a little bit there. A bit more there. And now I'm going to go back to my blue, the Prussian blue. And like I did the sky, I'm using my 3/4 inch brush. I'm going to wet this, take the paint off the pencil again. and wet that with the colour of the water, like so, see? And I'm wetting the green now. I've got a bit of reflection, but it's not too much in your face. Bit more colour off the pencil. And up to the bank there. Then big strokes coming out. Now if I wanted to get some more light on that water, wash my brush out, squeeze out, and simply take some bits of light out. Look. More there. Broad stroke there, just because it's running a bit. Move that around, that's better. Now for some more grass here, and I'm not going to wet this, but I'm going with my sap green, my apple green, and my moss green, and the night green. Shall I use all those? No, probably not. I'm not going to use the apple green. So, in with the sap green first of all. That's dry enough. And get some blades of grass showing up there. And a little bit of the moss green. And a little bit of the night green. And those I'm not going to wet. They're wet enough with the damp that I've got in the grass there, in the water there, sorry. But those, I'm just going to soften those there at the bottom. Now it's time for the shadow. The shadow time. The scary bit, but also the bit that brings it all to life. And what I've got here, I'm using my round brush, my number 8, and I've got the Prussian blue again. And this time, I'm mixing the colour on the brush. There's my Prussian blue. And this one's called Dark Calming. It's dark red. Silly names. And just test it first. A bit more blue. That'll do. A bit more water. Yep. I'm starting off here. Tip of the brush. A bit there. A bit there. A bit there. Coming down in here at the top. And now these buttresses, now I know what they are, will cast a shadow, diagonal shadow, onto the wall of the building, you see. And again, a bit there, diagonal shadow there. And on that. Up to the buttress. And inside there. And coming down there. Remix, a bit more blue, a bit more of that. Ready stuff. Always handy to have a side piece of paper to test on. And a bit in there. Down there. Why am I whispering?
Look down.
It's because it's a church. Bit there. Diagonal line there. Now into the end of the church there. Now, that same brush full of water that I've got, the brush full of paint that I've got there, I'm just put a tiny touch more water into it. And just pop inside there with those. Look. Now strengthen my shadow again. And strengthen inside the window there. And there. And there. A little bit inside. Now more water into the same brushful, keeping it weaker, and a little bit of texture and age to that. Just dab on. A few daubs. Daubs, that's a new technical term. Actually, that might not be a new term. It's the same mix but well watered. And again, tap on. Soften that colour in. And I've stuck my finger on there. I'll wash that out there. Just like watercolour, wash it out, do it again. Now, what I'm going to do, again, still in with the same brush and the same two colours. Bit of that, bit of that. Do. And let's have some shadow from these trees here. Wherever's casting the shadow, touch it with the shadow and then draw it out. A few bits down here as well. Still with that same brush full of paint. It's a bit blobby there. I'm going to change that slightly. Back to my 3/4 inch brush. Soften it in. Look. That's better. There. I can live with that now. Really, that's about it. Painting done. Just let it dry. And like I said, vignette, space around the edges, but it's always good to have a mixing bit somewhere. Now, just to save Gail doing any editing, I've just said, job done. And then, she who shall be obeyed said, I thought you were going to put some bits at the top there. So, I'll put some bits at the top there. What I'm using is my 3/4 inch brush. And I'm going to get the paint off again. And this is a bit of sap green. Get it good and loaded. And now, just tap on that. And again, load the brush. This time I'll split the brush. See? With a split brush. Get it on there like so. Split it. Reload it. Sit on. Now, a little bit of the Prussian blue, I'm sorry, the night green, nice and dark, and I've still got the brush split up. Stick on. There. Now we've got some overhang coming out of the top from a big tree that will be here. And can I call that done now, Gail?
Yes, it's lovely.
Job done. Thank you. Now, as you can see, it's quite a pleasing little watercolour, that one. But it's watercolour pencils. It's not traditional paint. But as I've said many times, once you wet it, wet the drawing, it becomes a painting, watercolour painting. Because it's very good, strong pigment. The pencils I'm using, Lyra, and these we sell these on the website in 2 different tins. This tin like I'm using, which is that one, there's 24 in there, and there's 12 in there. I think they're £25 and they're £13 on the website, so they're not expensive pencils, but they are very hard-wearing pencils. You've seen the size of mine, and they've been on the go for about 6 or 7 years now, and I'm nowhere near needing a new set. They'll last me another 6 or 7 years. So they're very economical. The brushes I've used, as ever, the Aquafine brushes, 1.5 inch flat for the sky, 3/4 for other big washes, like the grass, and mainly in this one, the number 8 round brush, which did all of the castle, if you remember, and quite a few of the trees as well. The number 4 rigger, I didn't use at all, but they come in a set of 4, or you can get them individually on the website. But I really recommend the pencils. They're fabulous. Love them. Love them. And like I said, when I'd finished the drawing, you can then leave it like that if you've got too cold outside, come home and make it into a painting there once you get home. All you've got to do is wet it once you've got all your colours on. There's a video on the website which is called Rake Lane?
Rake's Lane.
Rake's Lane. And we started that out on location and then came into the studio to do it. But there are videos on the website, and I think Rake's Lane.
Rake's Lane.
Rake's Lane. How much is it?
£5
for the video. But there's quite a few on there. Have a look. The paper I used is, as ever, my normal watercolour paper, which is the Langton Rough. And we do that in 2 formats. A big one and a small one. A4 and an A3. Langton Rough, fabulous paper. And you can use both sides. The rough side or the smooth side. Smoother side, but both sides are sized, ready to paint on. So very easy stuff. I don't change my stuff that often. So I hope you've enjoyed this, and thank you for watching. See you soon.